You are listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show, the only news and podcast in English about AS Cittadella. Hello everyone, welcome back to the CittaCalcioUsa show, episode number 158, coming to you on Wednesday, January 29th. A difficult 3-week start for Cittadella this upcoming Saturday as they welcome third place Spezia at the Tombolato, looking to avenge their 5-0 thrashing in La Spezia back in December. We believe it's going to be a completely different game, and we'll get into those reasons in a little bit during this podcast. But before that, we got to talk about Cittadella's latest win against Cosezna, getting a 1-0 victory in a relegation 6-pointer. Big win, big 3 points for the Granata as they go 5 points clear above the relegation playout zone, entering the month of February. So plenty to talk about, plenty of results, charts to look at in this podcast. So we're going to be looking into all of that in this show. So without further ado, let's get right into it. An ugly game, but the job is done for Cittadella as they get a 1-0 victory in Cosezna. It was a very interesting, I say interesting, but it was, I say ugly game because I definitely think it wasn't Cittadella's best performance, certainly under Dal Canto. And Dal Canto actually said after the game that he actually preferred, or I wouldn't say preferred, but he thought definitely the performance against Mantova, where Cittadella lost 2-1, the performance in that game before the weekend prior was actually better, and Cittadella played better, and he satisfied him more in that performance despite the loss. This game was kind of the opposite. Yes, Dal Canto is happy about the 3 points, but the performance, he says, needs still some work to do. And I can agree with him because Cittadella getting a goal in the 12th minute, it was actually their first goal off a set piece during this entire season, or from a free kick besides one penalty. This came in from Sangelo. It looked like it was, who got the touch? I believe it may have been Cardisoni who got, kind of challenged for the ball, but it went off Cosezna defender Dallamora in the 12th minute, and Cittadella held on ever since. But, regarding of that, Cittadella did not look very threatening up front, but the real stars of the show were both goalkeepers for Cittadella, and they both record clean sheets. I don't know if that's ever been done before, probably, but that was a very interesting dynamic where Castrati started the first half. He had to be substituted at halftime due to an injury, which we can later talk about. But for now, he is going to be out for about a month. That's what the reports are saying, from a right lumbar vertebrae fracture in his back. So he will be out. Maniero is likely to start this next game against Spezia, and then against Pisa, Catanzaro, and so forth. So Castrati is going to be out for a while, but Castrati did make some big saves in the first half. It was on the Cosezna striker, Gabriele Artistico, who really denied him from point-blank range. It was a very difficult save, and Castrati did well to really parry it aside. I mean, how many times have you seen that happen from Castrati where it seems like a certain goal, it seems like the attacker is certainly going to score, and Castrati once again bails out the defense or bails out the team with an unbelievable saves. He's done it time and time again, and that's just proving why he is the number one, and he's just been a very underrated aspect of Cittadella's game in these last 3-4 seasons or so when he was the number one. But Maniero had to take his place, and once again, he denied Artistico from point-blank range. It was quite a similar save in that, where it kind of bounced around the box. Artistico kind of had a header, he kind of redirected it pretty firmly and it was a pretty hard shot, and Maniero had to push it above and deny the goal, and it was a brilliant save. And he also made one towards the end of the game where it was a long-range volley. It was kind of a Hail Mary, last-minute chance for Cosenza to put anything on target, but Maniero was there to alert to punch it out. And that is 2 clean sheets for the Cittadella goalkeepers, like I said, in this game. So very interesting to see that. But regardless of the performance, you could say how Cittadella played in the attacking third. Pandolfi didn't have much going on in that game. Vita didn't have much, or it was, Ravasio came in. Okonkwo had a half chance, but it was a fairly comfortable save for Mikai in the Cosenza the goalkeeper for Cosenza. However, you could say all these things. You could read the stats saying, maybe Cosenza deserved at least a draw. Definitely seeing their expected goals, clearly outnumbering Cittadella in, pretty much every aspect. Cittadella kind of happy to sit back and absorb that pressure. And, they had to suffer a little bit and they had to absorb. But at the end of the day, Cittadella get 3 points, and that is 3 big points when you talk about the terms of the race for survival. Number one is they beat a relegation rival, and that puts them the head-to-head record, because if you remember in the previous round in the Andata match, Cittadella and Cosenza drew 0-0. And so in this game, 1-0. So if Cosenza and Cittadella tie on points come the end of the season, that means Cittadella will get the benefit there, and they will be above the Lupi in that position. As long as no third place team, a 3-way tiebreaker, then it really gets confusing. But that really kind of gives Cittadella a good starting foundation, where they've already played twice a relegation opponent. They got the job done against them, and now they look forward to. They still have to play Brescia. They still have to play Samp, Südtirol, Salernitana, Frosinone. Frosinone is towards the end of the season, so that could be a huge game. So there's still long ways to go, but Cittadella just one step at a time, and that 3 points lifts them above 16th place Sampdoria by 5 points. Cittadella currently on 27 points, Sampdoria on 22, where Sampdoria really just can't buy a win at the moment. They have not won since October, and another draw happened to them, blowing a 2-0 lead in Mantova and keeping them at bay. But the relegation picture is still, relatively the same. I mean, the real big winners of the last round were Cittadella and I have to say Südtirol winning 3-0 in another relegation 6-pointer against Frosinone, with Südtirol climbing out of the automatic relegation spots to 17th place with 22 points, and followed by Salernitana, Frosinone occupying the 18 and 19 with 21 points. Another team that's kind of sucked down into the relegation picture as of lately is Brescia. Similar to Sampdoria, they have not won a game in a long time, and they've actually just sacked Bisoli, their coach, and replaced him with Rolando Maran. And Brescia going back to Maran after just a few games for Bisoli. He wasn't on the touchline for long, but a 3-2 loss at home against Catanzaro was really the final nail in the coffin for that. So Brescia sinking below Cittadella, now in 15th place with 25 points. So keep on the lookout for that. But this is another point that I want to make, why this win was so important, was if you look at Cittadella's next upcoming fixtures, which I will read right now, is, you've got Spezia at home this upcoming weekend, which we'll get into. Then you got away against Pisa, the second place team right now. It's, in Pisa. It's always a difficult place to play, but, considering how good they've been this year, that'll be a tough game. And, that's a whole different story when you talk about the off-field stuff. How is the atmosphere going to be like, just given, how much has gone on since their last meeting in August? That's going to be very difficult. So you got 2 games against against 2 of the top 3 teams in the league. Then it's a short turnaround. They play Pisa on that Saturday, February 8th, And then on Friday, on Valentine's Day, February 14th, they play away against Catanzaro. Another long trip for the Granata in this match back to Calabria, just after 3 weeks or so. And they play Catanzaro, which is another team I think is kind of caught people by surprise. I mean, I'm not saying that, nobody's saying like they're a bad team or anything. It's just, they've kind of quietly crept up the table and currently sit sixth place right now with 32 points, and they only lost 3 games. So that is going to be a difficult game in Catanzaro, in Calabria on Valentine's Day. So this is why these 3 weeks are going to be very, very important. And if Cittadella did not beat Cosenza, if they had lost to Cosenza, which would have closed the gap between them and Cosenza, and given their loss against Mantova the week prior, that would have given you 0 points in those 2 matches going into this very difficult stretch of games. And that's how you get sucked back into the relegation zone really quickly. And I kind of remember last season around this time too, Cittadella were getting ready to play Brescia. And this was really a promotion 6-pointer because, at the time last year, Cittadella were pretty comfortably sitting in playoffs. And if they had beaten Brescia, they would have created a big gap between them. Then I recall they had Parma next, and then I think it was Catanzaro as well, and Spezia. All of those teams have been playing better at the moment. And, I was saying Cittadella needs a result in Brescia because they don't want to enter that Parma game, the league leaders, Parma, going into that game, knowing if they had lost, that would have been their 4th loss in a row. And, unfortunately that happened, and which ultimately led to 8 straight defeats, which, we've talked about plenty of times on this podcast. So I think, yes, the performance wasn't the greatest from Cittadella, but at the end of the day, they get the 3 points, which could be very, very vital at the end of the season, especially against a relegation rival like Cosenza, where they create a gap between them. It's currently 9 points between Cittadella and last place. And like I said, 6 points from the automatic relegation and 5 points from the relegation play out. So lots of games to still go in this Serie B season. I believe there is only about 14 games left. Let's see if we're going to subtract this. I believe, there's only 14, 15 games left. So, we are well past the halfway mark. This is really, I wouldn't say we're at the final stretch because, that we got to get through these, final winter months. And then, towards April, it's really, really going to start to heat up, and really you're going to see, you're going to see it's going to be quite a ride to the end in May. So that's going to be huge. One thing I want to say before we continue, I forgot to mention this in the intro, but thank you once again to Antonio Palopoli, who was the podcast guest last week, previewing the game against Cosenza. We did it in Italian, my second ever podcast in Italian. So big thank you to him. It's unfortunate to see Cosenza like this. He was talking about, how their fan base was just tired of always being in this situation at this time of year, no matter what they do in the transfer market. They're really struggling with the ownership. There was some protests at the stadium. So it's a very difficult situation for Cosenza. I feel them because, they're kind of like Cittadella in some ways, where like, how would I say, smaller teams in a smaller market, I wouldn't say, Cosenza is much bigger. I'm noticing that I'm saying, a lot. So I'm trying to kind of cut that out. But Cosenza, another team that hasn't been to Serie A, and another team that doesn't spend a lot, and coming from a smaller city. So, we sympathize a lot for Cosenza, and, even though they are a relegation rival and have been a relegation rival for a long time, you could still feel for them. So hopefully the situation will get better for them. They got a big game, another relegation 6-pointer for them this upcoming weekend against Sampdoria. But before we get into the Serie B side of things, I want to kind of read you I put out a tweet, and I'm keeping track of teams losing points from winning positions. And to highlight Sampdoria's struggles this year, they've given up 21 points from a winning position. That's a lot. They've lost 3 games from a time they were winning, and they've drawn 6 of those. Basically, what that means is, when the times they were leading, so if they take a lead 1-0 or 2-0, and they end up losing that game or drawing that game, those are points lost. And, if they lose that game, it's 3 points lost. If they tie it, it's 2 points lost. So I've been keeping track, and the second next worst points lost is Bari with 15, and then followed by Modena with 14. You got 12 points each from Brescia and Frosinone. Cittadella, surprisingly, have only dropped 5 points from winning positions. 3 of those points came at the very start of the season in that, really weird, wacky first game of the season in Salerno against Salernitana, where they gave up 2 goals in stoppage time to lose that game. So those were 3 points off the bat, and it's really only been 5 points dropped since then. And if I recall, that one draw was against Juve Stabia, where Cittadella did take the lead in that match, and upon settling for a draw. Another interesting thing that I've noticed was Cittadella's goals scored in this season. Now, I'm keeping track. I'm saying it's 20 goals scored because if you disregard the 3-0 forfeited loss, it is 20 goals because, Alessio Vita scored in that Pisa match, although in the official records it's not going to count, obviously, because it was a forfeited loss. However, for the sake of this, for the sake of, not making it as confusing, I'm just going to keep it as 20 goals. So it's 1 extra goal. But, seeing this, 3 goals in the first quarter of the hour, then 3 goals in the second, 3 goals in the 31st to 45 minutes. So in the final quarter hour of the final 15 minutes of the second half, 3 goals scored 15 minutes after the second half, 3 goals scored during the 60th to 75th minute, 3 goals scored in the 76th to 90th minute, and in stoppage time beyond the 90th minute, only 2 goals scored. So it's really balanced out, and that really kind of tells a lot, where you never know when Cittadella is going to score. They could score first, they could score last. It's a very interesting dynamic, and compare this to goals against. They've given up the most goals, 32 this season. They've given up 10 goals between the 31st and 45th minute of the game, so 15 minutes before stoppage time. And likewise, they've also given up 5 goals 15 minutes after halftime, as well as 6 goals between the 60th and 75th minute. So very interesting graph and stats that I'm pulling. I'm sorry if it doesn't make sense. If it doesn't, then I'm sorry. That this is my job. When you look at the away points, Cittadella recording their 5th away win. That's actually the best win tally in the last 2 seasons. If you look at last season, they had 4 wins, 7 draws, 8 losses on the road. The year prior to that, 4 wins, 8 draws, 7 losses. And in Guarini's first season and Venturato last season, they both had 6 wins each. And in this season, 5 wins on the road. I don't think that's talked about a lot. And that's really, you have to give Cittadella a lot of credit. I think that also, given a lot of that has to do with the struggle at home for Cittadella, not being able to win at the Tombolato until last December. I think that really put a mental burden on the players to really perform well in front of their fans. And once they got away from that pressure, once they were playing on the road, I think that kind of alleviated some of that pressure from their performances. But, very interesting that I don't think a lot of people are talking about that. But anyway, 27 points from 23 games. We are currently at the same amount of points that Cittadella had 2 seasons ago when they narrowly avoided relegation. So as it stands, they are on course to avoid relegation. Like I said, still a long ways to go, but I'm just saying that they are on course. If they follow this path, they should be okay. Compared to last season, remember they had 36 points for a long time after those 8 straight defeats, so they are currently trailing that point tally from last season by 9 points. But anyway, enough with this charts. We're going to be diving into this Spezia game coming up this Saturday, February 1st, 3 p.m. European time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at the Stadio Pier Cesare Tombolotto. I've already kind of previewed this game together with Elia, the Italian guy, so go check out both his and my YouTube channel, CittaCalcioUsa, for Speaking Serie B. We went really in depth in this, as well as I was a guest on his episode, Spazio al Prossimo, on Monday, so go check it out. We were talking about the game, previewing the game, and Elia did give me some good tips and injury update that he suspects that Eduardo Soleri might be out for this game. Not confirmed, but it's likely that he'll be out due to an injury. But the main absentee for this game on Saturday is Pio Esposito, Francesco Pio Esposito for Spezia, the leading goal scorer for them, 11 goals this season, picking up a yellow card accumulation in their last win against Sassuolo, which means he will miss the game on Saturday. A big blow for Spezia because obviously he is his, I worded that weirdly, he is their leading goal scorer, and when you don't have your leading goal scorer, obviously that's going to create some problems. However, Spezia still proving to be one of the favorites, I'd say, to be promoted, at least, in these moments right here. They will know the result of the Pisa game as Pisa plays Palermo the day before. So, whether we were talking about that with Leah, whether that puts more pressure on Spezia to perform or not, that's a very interesting dynamic to go into. But currently, Spezia trail Pisa in second place, the automatic promotion spots, by 5 points. Pisa beating Salernitana, and they have Palermo, like I said, on the weekend on Friday, and then Spezia plays Cittadella. So the pressure, I think, is definitely more on Spezia, just given how they need to keep up with the chasing pack of Sassuolo and Pisa. What was I going to say? Yeah, prior, 2 games ago, we were here. Spezia had only, after the 5-0 win against Cittadella back on December 8th, Spezia had only won one of their next 5, and they had started to drift a little bit away from the second place Pisa, but then they get a big result, a big derby win at Carrara against Carrarese 4-0, and then they won the big match, probably their biggest match of the season, 2-1 against the league leaders Sassuolo last Friday. So 2 back-to-back wins to kind of, restart it. That was a very important stretch because Spezia did not want to trail more points to Pisa and Sassuolo. So this is definitely another game where I think they are expected to win, and they are really need to keep winning to keep up with that pack, especially if Pisa slip up, which is a very big possibility against Palermo at the Stadio Renzo Barbera on Friday. This could be a chance to pull within, at least striking distance with 3 points, 2 points. It's definitely a possibility. So I think all the pressure is on Spezia. Cittadella, I think, would be totally happy with a draw. And just given, how strong Spezia has been, they have one of the best defense, I think the best defense in the league, with only, 15 goals conceded, 36 scored with 11 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses and 9 draws this season. Currently above 4th place Cremonese by 8 points? Yeah, 8 points. But having said, Spezia very good. We were talking about their team. Their even without Pio Esposito, I think they're going to be fine. They should have enough players. On paper, you'd say, yes, they are currently the better team, and they should win this probably comfortably. However, I think this is going to be a much closer game than it was in December in that 5-0 defeat where it was 3-0 at halftime. I think Cittadella has shown a lot of growth since that game. Both Dal Canto and the players have said, that game, and there I go again with saying, that game was really a moment where the players came together and they had to figure out what was wrong. And since that game, they've only lost once. And even in that loss against Mantova, Cittadella still played really, really well and probably deserved a draw in that match. So I think this is going to be definitely a closer game. I'm not saying Cittadella is going to win it or even draw it. I'm just saying it's probably going to be a close game, maybe a 1-0, 2-1 victory for Spezia. That's what I'm going to be predicting. However, it wouldn't surprise me if Cittadella gets a point out of this, which they would be very, very happy with, given their next run of fixtures against Pisa and Catanzaro. So another interesting random note that I had here was in the last 10 meetings between Cittadella and Spezia, Cittadella has not kept a clean sheet. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they are able to do that. I mean, they are little helping by Pio Esposito not being there. Likewise for Spezia, Elan Castrati is not going to be at the game. It's likely going to be Luca Maniero, which I'm confident about. Luca Maniero has shown some very good moments, especially in that last game against Cosezna. However, when he gets a chance, he's always there. So I have faith in him. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be a much closer game than in December. Spezia very good on set pieces, so I think Cittadella's got to limit that and limit their set pieces, whether that's corners, free kicks near the area. I think they have to be a good job and alert on that. But really, that's kind of all I have to say about this match. Like I said, I go much more, like way more into depth. Maybe that's why I'm kind of don't have anything else, because I've kind of already explained everything in the Speaking Serie B episode earlier today, where we talked with Elia, the Italian guy, the Spezia fan, about this match. So go check it out. Link is in this description, but as well, you could find it CittaCalcioUsa show on YouTube. So with that, if I don't have anything else to say, I think that is it. Cittadella getting ready to host Spezia for the first game of February 1st, 3 p.m. Central European Time, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Stadio Pier Cesare Tommolato. If you are going, go have fun, be safe out there, and support your team. And let's see what happens. Let's see if Cittadella could at least get a golden draw, as they say in Italian. But for now, that's going to be it. Don't forget to follow us Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, CittaCalcioUsa, and visit our website at CittaCalcioUsa.com for more information, news articles, match previews, match recaps, all that stuff. CittaCalcioUsa.com. You can find us there. Thank you for watching. I will see you next week, recapping this Spezia match and previewing what's going to be a very, very tense match against Pisa on the 8th of February. But we're going to be focusing on this Spezia match this upcoming Saturday, and then we'll be talking about it next week. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. And as always, Forza Citta. Thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. If you liked it, please share and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa. See you next time, and remember, Forza Citta.